6 months after the Invincible War, Earth is still broken. Mark Grayson stands in what used to be downtown Chicago. The cleanup crews finished clearing this sector 3 weeks ago, but he keeps coming back. Something about the emptiness helps. No screaming, no bodies. Just concrete dust and the ghost of what used to be a Starbucks. His phone buzzes. Cecil, we have a situation. Every situation is the same situation lately. Aftershocks from the war, another pocket of invincible variants they missed, another memorial service where people stare at him like he pulled the trigger himself. Where? Mark asks. Your house. Viltrumite's signature just landed in your backyard. Mark's blood goes cold. Is my mom. Mark, the signature doesn't match your father's profile. This is someone new. He covers the distance from Chicago to his childhood home in 47 seconds, breaking Mach 3 over Indiana. His comm crackles with Cecil's voice tracking the satellite feed. But Mark isn't listening anymore. He lands in his backyard hard enough to crack the patio stones. She's standing by his mother's herb garden, examining a tomato plant with what looks like genuine curiosity. She's wearing Viltrumite combat attire, form-fitting, efficient, marked with imperial insignias Mark recognizes from his father's old uniform. Her hair is dark, pulled back. Her posture is relaxed, but Mark can read the coiled violence in her shoulders. She could move faster than sound before he could blink. She looks up when he lands, smiles. It's not a friendly smile. Invincible, she says. You're smaller than the reports suggested. Who are you? Mark's fists clench. His HUD, courtesy of GDA tech woven into his new suit, shows his mother inside the kitchen, frozen by the sink. Alive. Not hurt. Yet. Anissa. I'm here on behalf of the Viltrumite Empire. She plucks a tomato, examines it, then crushes it between her fingers. The pulp drips onto the grass. Your father stopped reporting 6 months ago. The Grand Regent wants to know why. His father is in a coalition prison somewhere in deep space. Cecil confirmed it through Alan 3 months ago. The Empire doesn't know. Can't know. If they find out Nolan was captured, they'll send a full occupation force. He's on assignment, Mark says. Classified. Anissa's smile widens. Classified from the Empire he serves? Interesting. She takes a step toward the house. Perhaps your mother knows where he is. Mark moves to block her path. You don't touch her. Or what? Anissa tilts her head. You'll fight me? Kill me? We both know how that ends, little hero. I've been doing this for 2,000 years. You had powers for what, 3 years? 4. How adorable. She walks past him, not pushing, just walking, like he's not even an obstacle. I'll just have a conversation with... Mark grabs her arm. The movement is pure instinct. Stupid. Suicidal. But his hand closes on her wrist, and for just a moment they're frozen there. Anissa looks at his hand on her arm, then at his face. Something shifts in her expression. You're fast, she says quietly. Faster than you should be. Stronger, too. I felt that grip. She pulls her arm free, not hard, just steady pressure, and examines where his fingers were. Your father said you were weak, sentimental. But you've been training, haven't you? Really training. Mark doesn't answer. His heart is hammering, but he keeps his breathing steady. William taught him that back when they used to spar before the war, before everything went to hell. I'm going to make you an offer, Anissa says, and I want you to think very carefully before you answer. I don't negotiate with, your father abandoned his mission. That makes Earth a failed operation. Standard protocol is immediate occupation, 30 Viltrumites, full pacification, human government dissolved. She lets that sink in. But I'm willing to file a different report. Say your father is deep undercover. Say Earth is stable, progressing toward integration. Say you're a loyal Empire asset managing the transition. In exchange for what? Proof. Anissa steps closer. She's taller than him by 3 inches. You show me that Earth is worth preserving, that you can manage this planet without it requiring Imperial resources, that you're Viltrumite enough to be trusted. And if I refuse, then I kill your mother, right now. Then I kill everyone you love, one by one, until you agree or die trying to stop me. Either way, the Empire wins. Cecil is listening to this through his comm. Probably has a strike team scrambling, but they're useless against a Viltrumite. The Guardians are still rebuilding after the war. Bulletproof is in physical therapy. Black Samurai lost his sword. Rex is dead. He's alone. 6 months ago, before the Invincible War, Mark would have attacked, Rage would have overridden strategy. He would have died nobly and accomplished nothing. But the war changed him, showed him what happened when he let emotion drive tactics. He watched alternate versions of himself kill thousands, watched cities burn, watched his decisions stack bodies like cordwood. He learned, "How long?" Mark asks. Anissa's eyebrows rise. "Excuse me? How long do I have to prove it? To show you Earth is stable? You're actually considering this." "I'm considering keeping my mother alive. How long?" Anissa studies him for a long moment. 3 months. "You show me Earth can function under your oversight. You demonstrate Viltrumite efficiency, strength, commitment. You prove you're not the weak half-breed your father's reports suggested. And at the end of 3 months, I file my report. If you've impressed me, I recommend Earth for protectorate status. Minimal imperial oversight, continued human government. You as the primary liaison. If you haven't," she shrugs. "Occupation, your choice." Mark looks at his house. Through the kitchen window, he can see his mother. She's pressed against the wall, phone in her hand, probably mid-dial to 911 like that would help. He thinks about Eve, about the Guardians trying to rebuild, about Cecil's desperate defense initiatives that would last maybe 6 minutes against a real Viltrumite assault. He thinks about the Invincible War, about all the versions of himself who made the wrong choice. "Okay," Mark says, 3 months, I'll prove it." Anissa's smile is genuine this time, surprised. "Well, this is unexpected. But we do this my way," Mark continues. "You want to evaluate Earth? Fine. You see everything. The good, the bad, the human. No imperial oversight, no thrag looking over your shoulder, no predetermined conclusions. You judge fairly. Viltrumites don't do fair, child. Then you're not much of an investigator. You judge based on real data or your report is worthless." Mark holds her gaze. "And you stay away from my family. You want to monitor me? Fine. But you leave my mother alone." Anissa considers this acceptable. "But I go where I want, when I want. You don't get to hide Earth's problems from me. Deal." Her grip could crush concrete, but she keeps it just firm enough to make a point. "I'm staying at the abandoned textile factory on Route 9, Anissa says. "You know it?" "Yeah. We'll begin your evaluation." She looks past him at the house. "And Mark? Don't try anything clever. I've ended rebellions older than your planet. Whatever you're planning, I've seen it before." She flies away, straight up, disappearing into the cloud layer without a sonic boom. Controlled flight, showing off. Mark stands in his backyard, feeling his hands shake for the first time since she arrived. His comm crackles. "Mark?" Cecil's voice is tight. "Please tell me you didn't just agree to collaborate with a Viltrumite enforcer. She's a trained killer evaluating whether Earth is worth conquering. We can't win this." "I know." Mark walks toward the house. His mother is at the door now, pale, shaking. "That's why I'm not trying to win. I'm trying to survive." He disconnects before Cecil can respond. Chapter 2. The Wagger. Mark doesn't tell Eve immediately. He spends the night at his mother's house, sleeping on the couch, with one eye open listening for Viltrumite sonic signatures. Debbie sits in her chair until 3 a.m., just watching him, not speaking. When she finally goes to bed, Mark hears her crying through the wall. He doesn't go to comfort her, doesn't know what he'd say. At 5:47 a.m., he flies to the textile factory. It's been abandoned since the early 2000s, a sprawling complex of rotted machinery and broken windows. Anissa has cleared out the main floor, creating a space that looks almost habitable. She's wearing civilian clothes now, jeans, a black tank top. Still looks dangerous. "You're early," she says without looking up. She's reading something on a tablet. "Eager to prove yourself? Eager to get this over with." Direct. I like that." She sets the tablet down. "Your father was always apologetic, always making excuses. The humans need more time. I can't rush this, blah blah, weak. Start with the Invincible War. I want to understand what happened." The official reports were sparse. They spend the next 2 hours going over the war. Mark doesn't sugarcoat it, shows her the casualty reports, the destroyed cities, the alternate dimension marks who rampaged through Earth like rabid animals. Anissa listens, asks pointed questions, takes notes. "And you stopped them how?" she asks. "Killed most of them, talked down 3, imprisoned 2 in the flaxen dimension. You killed versions of yourself, at first? Then I watched one of them cave in my friend's skull. After that, no, I didn't hesitate." Something flickers across Anissa's face, approval, respect. It's gone too fast to read. Show me your combat capabilities, she says. Actual demonstration. I need to see what you can do. They fly to the Utah salt flats, empty, isolated, nothing to destroy for 100 miles. Anissa doesn't give him time to prepare. She attacks the moment they land. The first punch would decapitate a normal human. Mark barely gets his guard up in time. The impact drives him back 50 feet, boots tearing furrows in the salt. Anissa is on him before he recovers. Combination strikes, high, low, middle, each one faster than the last. Mark blocks, deflects, but she's testing him, probing his defenses, finding weaknesses. He shifts tactics. Instead of blocking, he redirects, uses her momentum against her, steps inside her reach, drives an elbow toward her ribs. She catches his arm, smiles. Better. You've been trained in Viltrumite combat doctrine. My father taught me before he left. Liar. Your father never learned these techniques. This is older. Where did you... For 90 seconds, they trade blows at super speed, moving faster than sound, impacts creating sonic booms across the salt flats. Then Anissa ends it. One precise strike to Mark's solar plexus. He doubles over, gasping. She could kill him right now. Instead, she steps back. You're better than expected, she says. Not even breathing hard, raw, unrefined. But you have instincts, and you learn fast. You adapted your strategy 3 times during that exchange. Is that a pass? It's acknowledgement that you're not completely useless. She walks back toward him. But combat capability isn't enough. The Empire doesn't need warriors. We have 30 of the best in the galaxy. We need managers. Show me you can manage this planet. They spend the next week in a routine. Mark takes Anissa on tours of Earth's recovery efforts, the GDA coordination centers, the rebuilding projects in Chicago and Tokyo, the international coalition Cecil established to handle post-war infrastructure. Anissa watches everything with those cold, analytical eyes, takes notes, asks questions that cut straight to the problems Mark was hoping to hide. Your defense grid is pathetic. 3 Viltrumites could dismantle this in an hour. We're building it with human technology. It's the best we have. Then your best is inadequate. She's not wrong. Mark knows she's not wrong. That's what makes it worse. On day 9, Mark takes her to meet the Guardians. The meeting happens at GDA headquarters in Cecil's main conference room. The Guardians are there, bulletproof black samurai, the immortal, recovering but present, monster girl and robot. They look at Anissa like she's a bomb about to detonate. This is insane, Bulletproof says to Mark. We're just sitting down with the enemy? She's evaluating Earth, Mark explains for the 3rd time. If we don't cooperate, the Empire sends an occupation force. This is the better option. Better option is I kill her right now, the immortal growls. His wounds from the war still haven't fully healed. Viltrumite attacks linger. Anissa smiles at him. You're welcome to try. Assuming you want to die for the 2nd time this year, the immortal starts to stand. Mark puts a hand on his chest. Don't. Mark, put your pride away. The tension in the room is thick enough to cut finally. Cecil speaks up. What exactly are you evaluating, Anissa? Whether Earth is worth the Empire's resources? Whether it can function as a productive member of our civilization? Whether Mark can manage it without requiring constant Imperial oversight? And if we fail your evaluation, then 30 Viltrumites arrive and turn Earth into what it should be. Efficient, orderly, and obedient. Robot's mechanical voice cuts in. And you're the sole judge of this evaluation? Thrag makes the final decision. But yes, my recommendation carries significant weight. Then the evaluation is rigged. You've already decided we're inferior. Anissa turns to Robot, tilts her head. Have I? You're making assumptions, little machine. Perhaps I'm capable of objective analysis. Perhaps I'll be impressed by what Earth has accomplished despite its limitations. You just called our limitations. I called them what they are. Limitations. That doesn't mean they're insurmountable. She stands, walks to the window overlooking the GDA facility. I've conquered 47 planets, most collapsed under Viltrumite pressure. Some adapted. Those that adapted survived. I'm curious which category Earth falls into. Mark watches her carefully. There's something in her tone, not compassion, nothing that soft, but interest, genuine curiosity. Maybe this isn't completely hopeless. On day 12, Mark introduces Anissa to Eve. It doesn't go well. They meet at the apartment Mark and Eve share. Before the war, they were talking about moving in together officially, But that conversation died along with Rex and a few thousand other people. Eve opens the door, sees Anissa and her powers flare immediately. Pink energy crackles around her hands. Absolutely not. Mark, what the hell? Eve, this is... Cecil sent me the briefing. She's a Viltrumite enforcer evaluating whether to recommend Earth for occupation. Eve's glare could melt steel. And you brought her to our home? She needs to see everything, Mark says quietly. That includes how humans actually live. I'm not a zoo exhibit. Anissa watches this exchange with interest. You're Adam Eve, matter manipulation abilities, theoretically capable of restructuring reality at a molecular level, but limited by psychological blocks and energy constraints. Stay out of my head. I'm reading your file. The Empire has extensive documentation on Earth's superhumans. Anissa steps past Eve into the apartment, not aggressive, just matter-of-fact, interesting living space. Small, inefficient. But I suppose humans value coziness over functionality. Eve looks at Mark. I'm going to kill her. Please don't. I'm going to kill her, then you, then myself, in that order. Mark pulls Eve aside while Anissa examines their bookshelf. 3 months, he whispers. That's all I need. I show her Earth can manage itself. She files a positive report. The Empire leaves us alone. You believe a Viltrumite enforcer is going to look at our quaint human civilization and decide we're worth saving. I believe it's the only option we have that doesn't end in mass graves. Eve's powers flicker, then die. She looks tired. They're all tired. The war took something from everyone. Fine, she says, but she stays in the living room. And if she touches anything in our bedroom, I'm vaporizing her. Dinner is awkward. Eve makes pasta, her grandmother's recipe, one of the few human things Mark still remembers how to appreciate. Anissa eats mechanically, clearly not caring about the taste, but she finishes her plate. You're an engineer, Anissa says to Eve, working on the reconstruction projects. Among other things, your matter manipulation could rebuild entire cities in hours. Why don't you? Eve sets down her fork. Because I'm not a construction company. I'm a person. I have limits. Limits are excuses. Limits are human. Yes, Anissa says, they are. The conversation dies. Mark tries to restart it twice. Fails both times. Finally, Eve excuses herself to the bedroom. Anissa watches her go. She hates me. You threatened her planet. What did you expect? I expected her to hide it better. Humans are usually more duplicitous. Anissa stands, walks to the window. Outside, the city sprawls. Lights in the darkness. Millions of people living their small, fragile lives. Do you love her? The question catches Mark off guard. What? Eve? Do you love her? Yeah, I do. Why? Mark doesn't know how to answer that. Because she makes me want to be better than I am. Anissa is quiet for a long moment. Viltrumites don't do love. We do breeding contracts. Efficient reproduction. Sounds depressing. Sounds practical. Love is a weakness, a vulnerability your enemies exploit. She turns to face him. If I wanted to hurt you, really hurt you, I'd kill her. Not your mother, not your friends, her. Because you love her, that's how you break a warrior. You take away the thing they can't afford to lose. Mark's fists clench. If you touch her, I won't. Anissa says it flatly. Matter of fact. I'm evaluating Earth, not threatening it. But I want you to understand what you've exposed by loving her. Your father made the same mistake with your mother. It's why he failed. My father didn't fail because he loved my mother. He failed because he couldn't choose between two worlds. And you think you can? I don't have to choose. I am both worlds. Anissa studies him. We'll see. She leaves. Mark watches her fly away, then goes to find Eve. She's in the bedroom, not crying, but close. Mark sits beside her on the bed. I hate this, Eve says. I hate that she's here. I hate that you're cooperating. I hate that she's right about us being helpless. We're not helpless, Mark, one Viltrumite. That's all it took. One Viltrumite walks onto our planet and we fold. What happens when it's 30? What happens when they actually decide to occupy us? Mark takes her hand. Then I do what I've been training for. I fight them. You fight them and die, and then the rest of us die, and Earth becomes another conquered world in their empire. Maybe, definitely. Mark doesn't argue. Can't argue, because she's right. They sit in silence, holding hands, watching the clock tick toward midnight. Tomorrow is day 13. Mark has 77 days left to prove Earth is worth saving. He's starting to wonder if it is. Chapter 3: The Exposure. 3 weeks into the evaluation, Anissa starts asking different questions. They're touring a hospital in Seattle, one of the facilities prioritized for post-war reconstruction. Anissa watches the doctors work, the nurses moving between rooms, the families waiting in corridors that smell like disinfectant and fear. Why do you let them suffer? She asks. Mark is reviewing the patient intake forms with the hospital director. He looks up. What? That child. Anissa points to a girl maybe 7 years old, hooked up to machines that beep and whir. Cancer. Terminal. She'll die in 4 months. Your technology can't save her. No, it can't, but you have superhumans. Adam Eve could restructure her cells. You have alien technology from the Flaxen dimension, from the Martians, from the Coalition. You could save her. It's not that simple. It is exactly that simple. You have the means. You choose not to use them. Why? Mark signals her to give them space. Because we can't save everyone, Mark says quietly. Eve's powers have limits. She can restructure matter, but complex biological systems, it's not easy. She could kill as easily as cure. And the alien tech isn't compatible with human physiology. We're working on it, but you let children die while you work on it. How efficient. Mark's jaw tightens. What would you have me do? Force Eve to attempt a procedure she's not confident she can perform? Risk killing that girl faster? I would have her try. Death is death. Dying in 4 months versus dying today. What's the difference? The difference is hope. The family gets 4 more months with their daughter. That matters to humans. Anissa watches the girl's mother through the window. She's holding her daughter's hand, reading a book about a princess and a dragon. Hope is a narcotic, Anissa says. It makes you complacent, better to face reality. At least this way, she dies loved. Anissa doesn't respond, just keeps watching the mother and daughter. They leave the hospital 20 minutes later. Anissa is quiet during the flight back to the factory. On day 24, Mark takes Anissa to a high school. It's his old school, Reginald Vell Johnson High. William arranged it despite his reservations. If this blows up in our faces, I'm blaming you, he said. The principal gives them a tour. Anissa watches students move between classes, observes teaching methods, examines the curriculum. She asks questions that make the teachers uncomfortable. Why do you teach them literature, history, art? These subjects serve no practical purpose. They teach critical thinking, the English teacher explains, how to analyze information, form arguments, understand different perspectives. You could program that, neural implants, direct knowledge transfer. Why waste years on education when you could accomplish the same result in hours? It's about growth, development, becoming a complete person. Anissa looks at the students, and what percentage of these complete persons will contribute meaningfully to your civilization? During lunch, Anissa sits with Mark in the cafeteria. Students give them a wide berth. Mark's face is still all over the news from the Invincible War. Your species is inefficient, Anissa says, picking at a meal she has no intention of eating. You spend decades preparing your young for adult life. Viltrumite children begin combat training at age 5. They're functional warriors by 10. Your humans are still learning basic mathematics. Different species, different development timelines. Excuses. Your inefficiency is a choice, not a necessity. He's nervous. Mark can see it in how he holds his lunch tray, knuckles white. Hey man, William says, not looking at Anissa. How's it going? Everyone knows who she is. William finally meets Anissa's eyes. You're the Viltrumite deciding if we're worth keeping alive. What's the verdict? Anissa tilts her head. You're very direct for prey. Might as well speedrun the second one. Mark kicks William under the table. He's joking. I'm not joking. I'm saying if she's going to recommend we all die, I'd like to know sooner rather than later. Got some bucket list items to cross off? You're afraid of me. Obviously. But you're sitting here anyway. Mark's my best friend. You want to judge humanity, you can start by judging loyalty. We don't abandon our people just because things get scary. Loyalty is admirable. Useless, but admirable. Other students are looking now. Loyalty is the only reason Mark survived the Invincible War. The only reason any of us survived. He had 100 chances to give up, to run, to let us all die. He didn't, because of loyalty. Because we matter to him. Anissa looks at Mark. Is this true? Mark doesn't know what to say. Settles for, yeah, it's true. And you consider this a strength? I consider it being human. Anissa is quiet. Then, thank you for lunch. I've seen enough. She stands and leaves. Mark watches her go, then turns to William. That was either very brave or very stupid. Probably both. William is shaking. She's terrifying, Mark. Her eyes, it's like looking at a shark. No emotion, just calculation. I know. Can you actually make this work? Can you convince her we're worth saving? Day 31, halfway through the evaluation. Cecil calls an emergency briefing. Mark arrives to find the situation room packed. The Guardians, Eve, Robot, half a dozen analysts. We have a problem, Cecil says. No preamble. Anissa has been accessing our databases. Classified files, security footage from the Invincible War, casualty reports, everything. I told her she could see anything, Mark says. You told her we didn't authorize it. There's a difference. Cecil pulls up a hologram. She's been analyzing our defense capabilities, running simulations, mapping our strategic weaknesses. She's doing her job. Her job is conquest planning. Mark, these are invasion prep tactics. She's not evaluating whether to recommend occupation. She's already decided, now she's figuring out how to implement it. Mark, you need to end this. Now. Before she reports back to the Empire. And do what? Fight her? She'd kill me before I landed a punch. Let her conquer an empty planet. Evacuate where? We don't have faster-than-light travel. We can't outrun the Empire. The Immortal slams his fist on the table. Then we fight, all of us, together. We make Earth too costly to conquer. At Eve, powerful but exhausted from reconstruction work. At Cecil, who runs on coffee and spite. We'd last 6 minutes, Mark says quietly. Maybe 7 if we're lucky. Then you're all dead and Earth gets conquered anyway. So what do we do? Bulletproof asks. Mark doesn't have an answer. The meeting breaks up without a plan. Mark stays behind with Cecil. I've been doing this job for 20 years, Cecil says, lighting a cigar. I've seen world-ending threats, alien invasions, interdimensional nightmares. I always found a way to survive. A loophole, a secret weapon, something. But I've got nothing here. She's right. Our defenses are pathetic. Our best heroes combined couldn't stop one Viltrumite, let alone 30. And we can't negotiate because we have nothing they want. Cecil takes a long drag. You bought us time, Mark. That's something. But I don't know how we use it. Mark flies to the factory that night, finds Anissa on the roof, looking at the stars. They're clearer here than on Viltrum, she says without turning around. Less atmospheric pollution. Your species hasn't completely destroyed your planet yet. Yet? Give it time. All primitive species pollute their environment. It's statistically inevitable. Mark sits beside her. Cecil thinks you've already decided. That you're just mapping our defenses before recommending invasion. Cecil is paranoid. It's why he's survived so long. I don't know. The admission surprises him. What? I came here with expectations. Primitive planet. Weak defenders. Failed integration. I expected to spend 3 months confirming what I already believed. She looks at him. But you're all so stubborn. Inefficient, yes. Weak, definitely. But you don't quit. That girl in the hospital, 4 months to live and her mother still reads to her. Your friend William, terrified of me but sits at my table anyway. Adam, Eve, rebuilds cities one molecule at a time even though it's exhausting her. Is that a good thing or a bad thing? Viltrumites don't do futile gestures. If something is impossible, we accept it and move on. You humans keep fighting anyway. It's irrational. It's hope. But it's kept us alive this long. They sit in silence, watching the stars. Somewhere up there, Thrag is waiting for Anissa's report, waiting to decide Earth's fate. Mark has 45 days left. Chapter 4. The Bond, Day 37. Anissa asks to meet Eve alone. Eve almost refuses. Why would I voluntarily spend time with the person evaluating whether my entire species lives or dies? And because you're the only human who's treated me like a threat rather than a curiosity. They meet at a cafe in Portland, neutral territory. Eve arrives armed. Anissa is wearing civilian clothes again, looking almost human except for the predatory stillness in how she sits. Talk, Eve says. Mark loves you, Anissa begins. No preamble, exploitable. If I wanted to control him, I'd threaten you. Great start. Really building bridges here. I'm not here to build bridges. I'm here to understand. Anissa leans forward. Why does he love you? What makes you worth that vulnerability? Are you seriously asking me to explain love? Yes. Viltrumites don't. Okay. You know what? Fine. Eve signals the waiter for coffee. Mark loves me because I see him. not Invincible, not the hero, not the Viltrumite weapon, just Mark. The kid who wanted to be normal, who read comics with his best friend, who still likes bad action movies. That's all, that's everything. You reduce him to utility. How strong is he? How useful? How efficient? I see the person underneath. And when he fails, when he's not useful, I love him anyway. Why? Eve sets down her cup. Because love isn't transactional. It's not a cost-benefit analysis. It just is. You love someone because they matter to you. Their existence has value independent of their utility. That's illogical. That's human. They drink their coffee in silence. Then Anissa asks, "Do you hate me?" Obviously, but you're sitting here anyway. Because Mark asked me to. Because giving you a chance, however small, is better than just waiting for the invasion. Eve meets Anissa's eyes. And because I want to understand why you're doing this, you're a Viltrumite, you could have just filed your report on day 1. Recommended conquest. Been done. Why the 3-month evaluation? Because Thrag asked me to be thorough. The Empire lost 99% of its population to the Scourge virus. We can't afford wasteful conquests. Earth needs to be worth the resources we'd invest. What's the real one? The real one is I've conquered 47 planets. Most of them were exactly what I expected. Primitive, disorganized, easy to break. But a few surprised me. A few had something worth preserving. Anissa looks out the window. I want to know which category Earth falls into. And if we surprise you, then I recommend protectorate status instead of occupation. Earth keeps its government, its autonomy. The Empire provides technology, protection, guidance. You become partners instead of subjects. And if we don't surprise you, then I recommend what you already fear. Occupation, integration by force. Eve is quiet, then, "Can I ask you something?" "Yes. Do you actually care about Earth, about humans, about any of this, or is this just an intellectual exercise?" Anissa considers. "Ask me again in 38 days. Day 42. Mark takes Anissa to meet his mother. Debbie refused the first 3 times he asked, finally agreed on the condition that Cecil's agents were positioned around the house. "I'll talk to her," Debbie said, "but I'm not doing it unprotected." They meet in the Grayson living room. Debbie makes tea. Her hands shake while pouring. "Mrs. Grayson," Anissa says, "thank you for having me. I didn't have you. My son dragged you here." Debbie sets down a cup in front of Anissa. "Why do you want to talk to me?" "Because you raised Mark. I want to understand how you took a half-Viltrumite child and produced, whatever Mark is now, has values we've discarded. I want to know where that came from." Debbie sits down. "You mean you want to know how to fix him, how to make him more like you?" "I want to understand him." "Why? So you can manipulate him better?" Anissa doesn't flinch. "Yes. And because he confuses me, he makes decisions that are strategically unsound but somehow work. He prioritizes individuals over optimal outcomes. He's inefficient by design, and I don't understand why it doesn't destroy him." Debbie looks at her son. Mark is standing by the door, trying to be invisible. "Mark," Debbie says, "go wait outside. Mom, outside, now." Debbie waits until she hears the door close. "My son is not a problem to solve," Debbie says quietly. "He's not broken, he's not incomplete. He's exactly what he should be. Someone who has power but chooses compassion anyway. It takes everything to be kind when you have the power to take whatever you want." Anissa is silent. "You came here to evaluate Earth," Debbie continues, "to decide if we're worth saving. But what you're really asking is whether Mark is worth preserving, whether his human half is a flaw or a feature. And he's my son. Of course I think he's worth preserving. But you?" Debbie leans forward. "You're Viltrumite. You've been taught that compassion is weakness, that efficiency is everything, that power is the only thing that matters. So I'll ask you, in all your conquests and all the planets you've subjugated, have you ever seen anything worth keeping?" "I've seen efficiency, order, systems that work." Quote, "That's not what I asked. Have you seen anything worth keeping? Anything beautiful? Anything that made you think, this should exist, even if it's not efficient?" Anissa opens her mouth, closes it. "I don't know." Day 50, Mark wakes up to find Anissa waiting on his balcony. "Something happened," she says. No preamble. Mark is instantly awake. "What?" "They want a status update. I have 5 days to file my preliminary report." "That's not. You said 3 months. We have 35 days left." Thrag moved up the timeline. Something spooked him. probably your father's continued silence. Anissa looks at Mark. I need to decide now. Protectorate or occupation? What's your pitch? Mark's mind races. I need more time. You don't have it. 5 days. Make your case. He shows Anissa everything. The reconstruction projects hitting their targets ahead of schedule. The international cooperation that survived the Invincible War. The heroes training together, preparing for future threats. The technology development labs where human scientists are reverse engineering flaxen tech. He shows her the hospital where that little girl is still alive, still being read to by her mother. Shows her the high school where William and his classmates are planning their futures despite everything. Shows her Eve, rebuilding entire city blocks one atom at a time. On day 54, Anissa says, I need to think. Alone. I'll file my report tomorrow. She flies away. Mark watches her go, feeling helpless for the first time since she arrived. That night, Mark sits with Eve on their balcony. Did we do enough? Eve asks. I don't know, but we fight. Eve takes his hand. I love you. I love you too. They sit in silence, watching the city below. Somewhere above them, Anissa is making a decision that will determine the fate of 8 billion people. Mark has never felt more human. Day 55. Dawn. Mark hasn't slept. He's been pacing his apartment for 6 hours, running scenarios, calculating odds, preparing for the worst. Eve fell asleep around 3 a.m., exhausted from stress. He covered her with a blanket and kept pacing. His calm buzzes at 6:47 a.m. Anissa's voice, flat and emotionless. Meet me at the factory now. Breaks Mach 2 over the city. Doesn't care about the sonic boom complaints he'll get later. Lands in the factory's cleared main floor to find Anissa standing with her back to him, looking at nothing. I filed the report, she says without turning. Mark's heart stops, and her face is unreadable. On you, the Empire will accept Earth as a protectorate only if you serve as the primary liaison. You manage this planet. You maintain order. You prove that a half-breed can be trusted with imperial responsibilities. I can do that because the conditions are strict. Any major instability, wars, environmental collapse, superhuman conflicts that destabilize regions, and the Empire revokes protectorate status. Occupation becomes automatic. I understand. Do you? Anissa steps closer. You'll be responsible for 8 billion humans, their decisions, their mistakes, their chaos. One major incident and everything you've built collapses. I can handle it. Your father couldn't. Mark meets her eyes. I'm not my father. No, you're not. She pulls out a small device. Viltrumite technology. Sleek and incomprehensible. This is a quantum communicator. Direct line to me. If you need assistance, if Earth faces a threat you can't handle alone, you call. I'll come. Mark takes the device. Why would you help? I'm not letting my work get wasted because you're too proud to ask for backup. She pauses. And because I told Thrag you were worth the risk. If you fail, my judgment is questioned. I don't like my judgment being questioned. So this is about your reputation. You succeeding is more valuable to me than you failing. Mark pockets the communicator. When will the Empire make contact? They won't. Not unless you trigger the conditions. As far as Thrag is concerned, Earth is a minor protectorate with a half-breed manager. He's got bigger concerns. Coalition attacks, internal politics, the ongoing search for your father. My father is not my problem. Or yours. Focus on what you can control. Anissa walks toward the exit, then stops. Mark, one more thing. Yeah? Thank you. The words are awkward in her mouth, like she's speaking a language she doesn't know. For what? I came here thinking Earth was like every other primitive planet, disorganized, emotional, weak. You proved me wrong. That doesn't happen often. She flies away before Mark can respond. Mark stands in the empty factory, holding the communicator, trying to process what just happened. They won. Earth survived. He survived. So why does it feel like he just made a deal with the devil? Chapter 6. The Cost. 3 weeks after Anissa's report, Earth settles into a strange new normal. The GDA establishes Mark as the official liaison to the Viltrumite Empire. It's a formal title now, Earth's protectorate representative. Cecil hates it, thinks it makes Mark too visible, but they don't have a choice. The Empire needs a point of contact. Mark's responsibilities expand overnight. He's not just a superhero anymore. He's a diplomat, a crisis manager, a global overseer. When there's a superhuman incident in Mumbai, he responds. When tensions escalate between nations over post-war reconstruction resources, he mediates. When a flaxen probe tests Earth's dimensional barriers, he intercepts it. Eve watches him work himself to exhaustion. You're going to burn out, she says one night, finding him reviewing incident reports at 2 a.m. Can't afford to burn out. One major incident and the Empire revokes protectorate status. Earth is too big, too chaotic. Then I get better at managing chaos. It's not sustainable. They both know it. But Mark doesn't know what else to do. The Guardians notice the change too. During a team briefing, the Immortal confronts him directly. You've become a dictator, the ancient hero says bluntly. Mark looks up from his tablet. Excuse me? You heard me. You shut down the Seoul protest last week, detained the organizers without trial, claimed they were destabilizing factors that could trigger imperial intervention. That qualifies as destabilization. They were exercising free speech, something humans are supposed to be allowed to do. Not if it threatens Earth's protectorate status. The room goes quiet. Monster Girl speaks up carefully. Mark, you're starting to sound like Cecil, like the ends justify any means. What means aren't justified. No one has an answer, but the looks they give him aren't friendly. They're concerned, worried, like they're watching someone they care about become something they don't recognize. After the meeting, Cecil pulls Mark aside. You're losing them. The Guardians. Your friends, they don't trust your judgment anymore. They don't need to trust my judgment, they need to follow my lead. You know who you sound like right now? Who? Your father. Right before he tried to conquer Earth. Mark wants to argue, to push back, to explain how this is different. But the words die in his throat, because Cecil's not wrong. Day 73. Anissa returns, unannounced. Mark is mediating a resource dispute between the European Union and the Pan-Asian Coalition, when his comm alerts him to a Viltrumite signature. He excuses himself, flies to meet her in the upper atmosphere. Status check, Anissa says by way of greeting. How's Earth management? Under control. Liar. I've been monitoring your broadcasts. The Seoul incident, the detained protesters, the increased GDA authority. You're centralizing power. I'm maintaining stability. You're becoming authoritarian, there's a difference. Anissa circles him slowly. I approved protectorate status because Earth showed the ability to manage itself democratically. If you're dismantling that system, my report becomes invalid. I'm adapting to the reality you created. You said any major instability triggers occupation. I'm preventing instability. By managing threats before they escalate, Anissa stops circling, hovers in front of him. You're afraid. Of course I'm afraid. 8 billion lives depend on my decisions. One mistake and they all die. You think I sleep well with that hanging over me? Unpredictable. Fear makes me careful. No, fear makes you paranoid, and paranoia makes you exactly the kind of authoritarian the Empire doesn't want managing a protectorate. Anissa's voice is cold. Fix this. Remember why I approved Earth. If you continue down this path, I'll recommend reevaluation. That night, Mark sits with William at their old high school's football field. Tradition, whenever things got bad, they'd come here and talk. I'm losing it, Mark says quietly. The person I used to be. I can feel it slipping away. William doesn't argue. Yeah, you are. Thanks for the support. You came here for honesty. William looks at his best friend. You're making decisions your old self would hate. Detaining protesters, expanding surveillance, shutting down criticism. You're becoming everything you fought against. I'm trying to save everyone. Mark, you can't save people by taking away their freedom. That's not saving. That's just a different kind of conquest. Then what do? Let chaos happen and hope the Empire doesn't notice. You let them make their own choices, even when those choices are stupid. That's what democracy is. Trusting that people, collectively, will figure it out. If they make choices that trigger imperial intervention, but at least we die free. Wants to explain why that's not acceptable. Why survival matters more than principles. Why he can't afford to let people make catastrophic mistakes. But he can't, because he knows William is right. Chapter 7. The Crisis. Day 89, the crisis Anissa warned about, arrives. A radical faction calling themselves the Human Liberation Front launches coordinated attacks across 6 continents. They target GDA facilities, reconstruction sites, anywhere that represents the collaboration with Viltrumite oppression. The attacks kill 43 people, injure hundreds more. And worst of all, they're coordinated, sophisticated, clearly planned over months. Mark responds immediately, tracks the faction to their base in rural Montana, dismantles their entire operation in under an hour, arrests everyone involved. Cecil calls it a success. The Guardians have reservations. And Anissa appears at the GDA headquarters the next day, unannounced. Walking past security like they don't exist, she finds Mark in the Situation Room, reviewing interrogation reports. We need to talk, privately. They go to the roof. Anissa doesn't waste time. The attacks yesterday, the Human Liberation Front, you handled it efficiently. You handled it too efficiently. Anissa pulls up holographic data, 43 confirmed kills, 217 arrests, 0 casualties on the GDA side. You didn't just stop the attacks. You annihilated them. They were terrorists. They killed innocent people. They were dissidents, and you used lethal force against 43 humans who could have been detained. Mark's jaw tightens. They were armed. They fired first. I defended myself and others. You're Viltrumite. They couldn't hurt you with small arms fire. Every single kill was optional. Anissa steps closer. This is exactly what I warned you about. You're not maintaining order. You're enforcing compliance through overwhelming force. Let them keep attacking. I'd have you show restraint. Prove that Earth can handle dissent without resorting to mass violence. Instead, you've proven the opposite, that Earth's protectorate representative responds to opposition with lethal force. I was protecting people. You were protecting your authority. Anissa's voice is ice. And you've just given me evidence that Earth may not be ready for protectorate status after all. The words hit Mark like a punch. You're reconsidering your report? Gathering data. The Empire expects periodic updates. If the next update shows Earth descending into authoritarian control, Thrag will question my initial assessment. So what do? You figure out how to maintain stability without becoming a tyrant. That's your problem to solve. She leaves. Mark stands on the roof, feeling the weight of 8 billion lives pressing down harder than ever. That night, Mark does something he hasn't done in weeks. He goes to see Eve. She's working late at her lab, using her powers to synthesize materials for reconstruction projects. When Mark appears, she doesn't stop working. I heard about Montana, she says quietly. I did what I had to do. 43 people who might have been arrested, tried, given a chance to explain why they were so desperate they turned to terrorism. They killed innocent people first, and now you've killed them. What does that make you? Mark doesn't answer. Can't answer. Eve finally stops working, turns to face him. I love you. I need you to know that first. But I don't recognize you anymore. Eve, the Mark I fell in love with, would have tried to save those people, would have seen them as victims of circumstance, products of post-war trauma, people who needed help, not execution. That Mark would have gotten Earth conquered. But at least he would have tried to save everyone, not just the ones who comply. Mark feels something break inside him. I don't know how to do this. How to keep everyone safe without becoming the thing they need protection from. Eve walks over, takes his hands. Then stop trying to keep everyone safe. Accept that you can't control everything. Let people make mistakes. Let the world be messy. That's what living is, accepting the chaos. And if the chaos triggers imperial intervention, as people who chose freedom over security, Mark pulls her into a hug, holds on like she's the only solid thing in a collapsing world. I'm scared, he whispers. I know. Me too. They stand there for a long time, two people trying to hold on to each other while the world demands they become something else. Chapter 8, The Revelation. Day 94. Anissa contacts Mark with new information. We need to meet. The factory. 1 hour. Come alone. What's wrong? I received a message from Thrag. He's sending an envoy to Earth. Inspection team. They arrive in 2 weeks. An inspection team? That wasn't part of the Protectorate Agreement. Protectorate agreements include periodic review clauses. Thrag invoked his right to inspect Earth's stability. Anissa stops pacing, faces Mark. This is my fault. My reports have been too optimistic. I've been emphasizing Earth's potential while downplaying the instability. Thrag suspects I'm concealing problems. Are you? Yes. Because I believed you could resolve them before imperial scrutiny became necessary. I was wrong. Mark processes this. Who's coming? Craig is old guard. 5,000 years. Survived the Scourge virus. Absolute Viltrumite traditionalist. He'll evaluate Earth through the lens of imperial efficiency. If he sees disorder, dissent, or weakness, he'll recommend immediate occupation. Then we have 2 weeks to make Earth look stable. Craig isn't stupid. He'll see through performances. He'll talk to humans, evaluate infrastructure, assess your management capabilities. If he determines you're failing, my reputation fails with you. Mark hears what she's not saying. You're worried about more than just your reputation. Anissa is quiet for a moment. I told Thrag that Earth was worth preserving, that humans, despite their flaws, had potential, that you could bridge the gap between species. I staked my credibility on that assessment. And something I didn't expect to develop. She meets his eyes. I don't want Earth to fall, not because of imperial politics or my reputation, but because I've spent 94 days watching you people struggle and survive, and refuse to give up, and something in me has started to care. The admission clearly costs her. Mark can see the conflict in her face. Viltrumite conditioning warring with something newer, rawer. Caring is weakness, Mark quotes back at her. You told me that. I told you a lot of things I'm beginning to question. Anissa walks to the window. I've conquered 47 planets. Most deserved conquest. They were violent, chaotic, self-destructive. But Earth, you're all those things and something more. You're resilient, creative. You find meaning in struggle. It's illogical and inefficient, and I can't stop thinking about it. Mark doesn't know what to say. This is the most vulnerable he's ever seen her. Help me prepare for Craig, Anissa says, turning back to him. Not because I'm ordering you, because I'm asking, as someone who doesn't want to see this world burn. Mark nods. Tell me what he'll look for. They spend the next hour planning. Craig will evaluate 3 things: infrastructure stability, population compliance, and Mark's effectiveness as a liaison. Any significant failures in these areas will trigger occupation recommendations. The Montana incident is a problem, Anissa says. Craig will see that as evidence of growing rebellion. You'll need to demonstrate that it was an isolated event, not a pattern. How? Show him humans who support Earth's protectorate status, who see the value in imperial partnership, who trust your leadership. You want me to stage propaganda. I want you to showcase reality. There are humans who support this arrangement, aren't there? Mark thinks about the reconstruction workers who've benefited from Viltrumite technology transfers, the scientists collaborating with imperial data, the families who've received medical treatments derived from alien biotech. Yeah, there are. Craig respects results, not rhetoric. Over the next 2 weeks, Mark coordinates with Cecil to prepare. They identify key individuals who've benefited from protectorate status. They document infrastructure improvements. They compile data on crime reduction, economic stabilization, technological advancement. But they also can't hide the problems. The remaining rebel factions, the protests against GDA authority, the families still mourning losses from the Invincible War. Earth is healing, but it's not healed. On day 107, Craig arrives. Chapter 9, The Inspection. Craig descends from orbit with 2 subordinates, both younger Viltrumites, both radiating barely contained violence. Mark meets them in the upper atmosphere. Protocol dictates the greeting happens in neutral territory. Invincible. Craig's voice is gravel grinding against stone. I am Craig, Viltrumite Inspector General. I'm here to evaluate Earth's protectorate status. Welcome to Earth. I'm prepared to provide full access to flowery language, optimistic assessments, emphasis on potential. Craig's eyes are cold. I'm here to determine if her optimism is justified or if she's been compromised by prolonged exposure to primitive culture. They land at GDA headquarters. Cecil is waiting with the Guardians, a show of unity that Cecil insisted on. We present a strong, organized front, Cecil said. No visible conflicts. Walks past the Guardians like they're furniture. His subordinates follow. Show me your infrastructure, Craig demands. Mark leads them on a tour. The rebuilt cities, the upgraded defense satellites, the international coordination centers. Craig examines everything with those cold, analytical eyes, taking notes on a Viltrumite tablet. At the reconstruction site in Chicago, Craig stops, points at a memorial wall, names of the dead from the Invincible War etched in stone. Explain this. It's a memorial, Mark says, to honor those who died. Why? Because they mattered, because their families need a place to mourn. Inefficient, the dead serve no purpose. Resources spent on memorials should be allocated to productive infrastructure. Mark bites back his first response. Humans process grief differently than Viltrumites. The memorial serves a psychological function, helps the population heal. Psychological functions are not infrastructure. They move on. Craig's subordinates take notes. Mark can feel the evaluation tilting negative. At the GDA Medical Research Facility, Craig examines the Viltrumite-derived medical technology. This is adequate. Proper utilization of imperial resources. We've used it to cure diseases that were previously terminal. Extended human lifespans by an average of 8 years. Satisfactory. Continue. The first positive mark. Mark tries not to show relief. On day 2 of the inspection, Craig demands to speak with human civilians. I want unfiltered perspectives, no prepared statements. Cecil arranges a town hall in New York. 200 randomly selected citizens. Craig sits in the front row, flanked by his subordinates, while humans nervously answer questions. Do you support Earth's protectorate status? Craig asks a woman who lost her son in the war. I don't know. We're alive, that's something. But we're not free anymore, are we? Mark Grayson makes decisions for the entire planet. We don't get a vote. Craig takes notes. Continue. My son died because Mark's alternate selves invaded, and now Mark is our protector. How is that justice? Another voice. But the protectorate brought stability. No more superhuman conflicts. No more alien invasions. My daughter is alive because of Viltrumite medical tech. Your daughter is alive because you submitted to imperial authority. The first woman counters. The town hall devolves into argument. Half the room supports the protectorate. Half resents it. Craig watches with apparent satisfaction. After the town hall, he approaches Mark. Your population is divided. That indicates failed leadership. Humans are allowed to disagree. Disagreement is inefficiency. A properly managed protectorate shows unity of purpose. Unity of purpose through suppression of dissent. That's not management. That's tyranny. You've been reading Viltrumite philosophy. I've been learning what not to become. Interesting. Craig makes another note. Doesn't elaborate. On day 3, Craig requests a private meeting with Anissa. They speak in Viltrumite for 2 hours. Mark isn't invited. When the meeting ends, Anissa finds Mark on the GDA roof. Her expression is carefully neutral. Craig has concerns. I noticed that my reports emphasize Earth's strengths while minimizing your failures as a liaison. The truth, that Earth is messy, chaotic, and inefficient, but also resilient, adaptive, and capable of growth. That you're struggling with the responsibility but haven't failed yet. Yet, Anissa looks away. He's going to recommend reevaluation in 6 months. Not occupation, yet, but closer monitoring, more frequent inspections. Better than immediate occupation. Craig doesn't trust my judgment anymore. The next inspection won't be as lenient. I'm sorry, I know this damages your reputation. My reputation is secondary. What concerns me is what happens when Craig files his report. Thrag will see it as evidence that Earth is more trouble than it's worth. That protectorate status should be revoked. Then we have 6 months to prove otherwise. We have 6 months to transform an entire planet into something it's not. That's not a plan, Mark. That's a fantasy. Below, the city continues its daily rhythm. People working, living, arguing, existing. Chaotic, beautiful, human. I don't know how to do this, Mark admits. How to be what Earth needs and what the Empire demands. They're incompatible requirements. Anissa is quiet for a long moment. Then, maybe that's the problem. You're trying to serve 2 masters. Eventually, you'll have to choose. If I choose Earth, the Empire conquers us. If you choose the Empire, you lose what makes Earth worth saving. Mark looks at her. What would you choose? I don't know. 6 months ago, the answer would have been simple. But now, she trails off. Now I'm beginning to understand why your father failed. Not because he was weak, but because he fell in love with something that couldn't coexist with his duty. My father fell in love with my mother. What did you fall in love with? Just flies away, leaving Mark alone with the weight of impossible choices. Chapter 10, The Alliance. Day 112. Craig files his report and leaves Earth. Cecil receives a summary through classified channels. It's not great, but it's not catastrophic. We have 6 months before the next inspection. 6 months to do what? Mark asks. Become something we're not? 6 months to figure out how to be what we are without triggering occupation. Cecil lights a cigar, unless you have a better idea. Mark doesn't. So he works, harder than before, mediating disputes, managing threats, trying to balance stability with freedom, order with democracy, survival with principles. It's exhausting, impossible. Slowly killing him, Eve notices. You're losing weight, you're not sleeping. Mark, you can't keep doing this. I don't have a choice. You always have a choice. The question is whether you're making the right one. On day 123, something unexpected happens. Anissa contacts Mark. I need to show you something. Meet me at the factory. Mark arrives to find Anissa with maps, data, reports, all marked with Viltrumite Imperial seals. What is this? Coalition intelligence. Reports from the ongoing war between the Empire and the coalition of planets. Anissa spreads the data out. The Empire is losing, slowly, incrementally, but losing. What does that have to do with Earth? Everything. The Empire can't afford to occupy Earth right now. The resources required, even for a small protectorate like Earth, are resources they need for the coalition front. Thrag is stretched thin. So the inspections, the evaluations, are theater. Thrag can't afford to occupy Earth, but he can't admit that weakness. So he maintains the illusion of control through inspections and threats. Anissa meets Mark's eyes. But if the coalition war turns worse, if the Empire becomes desperate, Earth stops being a low-priority protectorate. It becomes a strategic asset, and strategic assets get occupied regardless of prior agreements. Why are you telling me this? Because I've been thinking about our conversation, about choosing between masters. Anissa takes a breath. I've served the Empire for 2,000 years, conquered 47 planets, killed thousands, all in the name of Viltrumite supremacy, and I never questioned it because questioning was weakness. But I've spent 4 months on Earth, watching you struggle to do the impossible, watching humans cling to hope in hopeless situations, watching people choose compassion when cruelty would be easier. Her voice is quiet, and I'm beginning to think the Empire is wrong. The admission hangs in the air between them. If Thrag knew you said that, I'd be executed for treason. I know. Anissa straightens. But I'm done lying to myself, done pretending that conquest is the only way. Earth has shown me something different, something that might actually work. What are you proposing? An alliance. Not between Earth and the Empire. Between Earth and me. I help you navigate imperial politics, feed you intelligence about upcoming threats, provide warning when inspections or interventions are planned. In exchange, you give me something I've never had. What? A home. A place where strength serves creation instead of destruction, where power protects instead of conquers. She looks away. I know it sounds naive, sentimental, everything I was taught to despise, but I've spent 2,000 years being what the Empire wanted. I'd like to spend whatever time I have left being something else. This is the last thing he expected. Anissa, if you betray the Empire, I'll be hunted. I know, but I'll also be free, really free, for the first time in 2 millennia. The Empire will send someone to investigate your defection, probably someone worse than Craig. We'll deal with them together. Mark looks at this woman, this warrior who spent months evaluating whether to recommend his planet's destruction, and sees someone fundamentally changed. Okay, he says, alliance. But we do this carefully. No overt defection yet. You maintain your cover, file your reports, play your role. But you feed us intelligence, help us prepare for what's coming. Agreed. They shake hands. This time, when Anissa grips, it's not a test of strength. It's an acknowledgement of partnership. One question, Mark says. What changed? What made you decide Earth was worth betraying the Empire? Anissa is quiet for a moment. Do you remember the hospital? The little girl with cancer? After my report was filed. Wanted to see if she was still alive. Anissa's voice is soft. She was, and her mother was still reading to her. Still hoping, still loving her daughter even though death was inevitable. And I realized that's what Earth has that Viltrum lost. The ability to find meaning in futility, to love knowing you'll lose, to hope when hope is illogical. She looks at Mark. That's worth protecting, even if it costs me everything. Mark feels something shift in his chest. This is more than a strategic alliance. This is someone choosing to become something better than what they were made to be. Welcome to Earth, Mark says. Anissa smiles. It's the first genuine smile he's ever seen on her face. Thank you. Day 147. 3 months until the next Imperial inspection. Mark and Anissa establish a routine. She maintains her cover as Earth's evaluator, filing periodic reports to Thrag that paint Earth as stable but requiring continued monitoring. Meanwhile, she feeds Mark intelligence about Imperial movements, coalition war developments, and potential threats. The arrangement works. For a while, Then Cecil's intelligence division intercepts a transmission. "Mark, we need to talk, now." Cecil's voice on the comm is urgent. "Situation room, bring Anissa." Mark finds Anissa at the factory. Cecil knows something. He wants both of us. About the alliance? He didn't say, but he sounded worried. They arrive at GDA headquarters to find Cecil surrounded by analysts, holographic displays showing deep space telemetry. "We intercepted this 6 hours ago." Cecil pulls up a transmission, Viltrumite encryption, partially decoded. It's from Thrag, addressed to someone called Lucan. Orders are clear. Investigate Anissa's loyalty. Assess whether Earth exposure has compromised her effectiveness. Terminate if necessary. Anissa's face goes blank. Lucan is Thrag's enforcer. "If he's been sent to investigate me, you're compromised," Cecil finishes. "Thrag suspects you've gone native." "When does Lucan arrive?" "Unknown, but Viltrumite investigations are swift. He could be here in days, maybe hours." Mark processes this. "Then we need to move you off-world, get you somewhere the Empire can't find you." "Where?" "The Empire controls or monitors most of the galaxy. The Coalition won't harbor a Viltrumite defector. They'd execute me themselves. There's nowhere to run." "Then we fight. When Lucan arrives, we take him down." Anissa shakes her head. "Lucan has been Thrag's enforcer for 4,000 years. He's survived the Great Purge, the Scourge virus, countless campaigns. He's stronger than me, probably stronger than you. If we fight him, we lose. So what do? We prove my loyalty to Thrag. To the Empire," Anissa's voice is cold, calculating. "We stage an incident. Something that demonstrates I'm still committed to Imperial interests. Something Lucan will report back favorably." Eve, who's been listening from the back of the room, speaks up. "You want to fake a loyalty test? What kind of incident?" Anissa looks at Mark. "Something violent, visible, proof that I'm still willing to enforce Imperial authority. A public demonstration of force against a significant threat." Mark understands immediately. "You want to stage a crackdown. Make it look like you're suppressing Earth dissent." "Yes, absolutely not." Eve steps forward. "We're not using innocent people as props in your loyalty theater." Then suggest an alternative. "Because if Lucan arrives and I can't prove my dedication to the Empire, he kills me and recommends Earth for immediate occupation. Everyone dies. We need a play, something convincing." "We could stage a fake rebellion," one of the analysts suggests. "GDA operatives pretending to be insurgents." Anissa crushes them publicly. Lucan sees the footage, files a positive report. Anissa says, "It needs to be real. Real threat, real response, real consequences." Mark's mind races. The remaining Human Liberation Front cells. They're still operating in underground networks. If we could draw them out, make them launch an attack, people who will actually try to kill innocents. How is that better? We're just channeling it into a controlled scenario. There's nothing controlled about unleashing terrorists and hoping you can stop them in time. They argue for 30 minutes. No consensus. Time is running out. Finally, Robot speaks up. His mechanical voice cuts through the debate. "I have a proposal. A third option. We don't stage loyalty to the Empire, we stage defection." "Explain," Cecil says. "Lucan is coming to investigate Anissa's loyalty. He expects one of two outcomes. She proves her loyalty, or she reveals her defection, and he kills her. What if we give him a third outcome? What if Anissa appears to be on the verge of defection, but Mark stops her? Make it look like I'm stopping her from betraying the Empire." "Exactly." Lucan arrives, witnesses Mark defending Imperial interests against a compromised operative. It proves two things. Anissa is unstable and needs to be recalled, and Mark is a reliable Imperial asset. Earth's protectorate status is secured. Anissa is removed from danger before Lucan can execute her, and we buy time. Time for what? Eve asks. Time to find an actual solution. The Coalition War is deteriorating for the Empire. Eventually, Thrag will need allies. When that moment comes, Earth can negotiate from a position of strength. Anissa considers this. It could work, but the fight has to be convincing. Real damage. Real violence. If Lucan suspects we're performing, everyone dies. Mark looks at her. "How real are we talking?" "Badly. And I'll have to hurt you back." "Can you do that?" Mark thinks about the Montana incident. The 43 kills he's been trying not to think about. The slowly blurring line between protection and oppression. "Yeah," he says quietly. "I can do that." Chapter 12. The Stage, Day 151. Lucan arrives without warning. He descends from orbit like a hammer, impacting downtown New York with enough force to crater the street. Taller than Anissa, broader than Mark, covered in scars that tell stories of 4,000 years of violence. Mark is already in the air when Lucan lands. He's been monitoring for Viltrumite signatures since Cecil's warning. "Lucan," Mark says, keeping his voice steady. "I'm Mark Grayson, Earth's Protectorate representative. We weren't informed of your arrival." Investigations are more effective when subjects aren't given time to prepare. Lucan's voice sounds like rocks grinding. "Where is Anissa?" "Anissa, we have a visitor. Lucan, downtown New York." Static, then Anissa's voice carefully neutral. "On my way." "Lucan, this is unexpected. The Grand Regent has concerns about your reports. You've been on Earth for 5 months. Your assessments have been consistently optimistic. Too optimistic. Earth has shown significant progress. Earth is chaotic, disorganized. The half-breed liaison has demonstrated questionable judgment in managing civilian unrest. Yet your reports emphasize potential over problems. Why? Anissa doesn't hesitate. Because potential is what matters. Any species can maintain order through brutality. Earth is learning to maintain order while preserving the inefficient emotional structures that make them productive. That's valuable. Or you've been compromised by exposure to primitive sentimentality. Test me then. Give me an objective. I'll demonstrate my loyalty. Lucan studies her, then pulls out a device, Viltrumite scanner tech, points it at a building 3 blocks away. That structure contains a resistance cell. 14 humans planning attacks against Imperial technology distribution centers. Eliminate them. Publicly, now. That building isn't empty. Intelligence reports show families living above the resistance cell, 23 civilians, including children. Anissa's face doesn't change. Understood. She moves. Mark intercepts her mid-flight. "Wait. Anissa, there are civilians in that building. Kids. I have my orders. You can't." She hits him. Full force. Sends him crashing through a parked bus. Mark staggers to his feet. This is the performance. They planned this. But Anissa's eyes are cold, unreadable. Is she acting? Or has she chosen the Empire after all? He flies at her. They collide mid-air, trading blows that shatter windows. Anissa is holding back. Mark can feel it, but not much. Every hit rattles his bones. "Stand down," Anissa hisses during a grapple. "Let me handle this." "Not with civilians at risk." "Then what's your plan? We fight until Lucan gets impatient and kills us both." She has a point. Mark is running out of options. Then Eve's voice crackles in his earpiece. "Mark, I've evacuated the building. Upper floors are clear. The resistance cell doesn't know yet, but they're about to have a very bad day." Anissa catches the signal, nods imperceptibly. She breaks the grapple, flies toward the building. Mark chases her. They crash through the 3rd-floor window into the resistance cell's headquarters. 14 armed humans spin toward them. One fires a plasma weapon, stolen GDA tech. The blast hits Anissa's shoulder. She doesn't flinch. What happens next is brutal and efficient. Anissa moves through the cell like a surgical instrument, disabling weapons, breaking limbs, dismantling the entire operation in 90 seconds. She doesn't kill, pulls every strike just enough to incapacitate instead of terminate. But Lucan is watching. She needs to sell this. Mark understands. Attacks her from behind. She spins, catches his punch, uses his momentum to throw him through the wall. They tumble into the street, tearing up asphalt, crushing cars. The fight escalates. Blood Viltrumite blue spatters the concrete. Mark's ribs crack. Anissa's nose breaks. They're both operating at their limits, making it look uncontrolled while maintaining just enough control to avoid killing each other. Finally, Mark lands a hit that sends Anissa sprawling. She doesn't get up immediately. Stays down, breathing hard. "Enough," Mark says, loud enough for Lucan to hear. "You're compromised, Anissa. I can see it. Hesitation. Conflict. You've spent too long on Earth. You're not Viltrumite anymore." Anissa spits blood. "I completed my mission. The resistance cell is neutralized. You hesitated. You could have killed them in seconds. Instead, you incapacitated them. That's mercy. That's weakness." Lucan descends, landing between them. Studies the destroyed building, the disabled resistance fighters, the blood on the street. "The half-breed is correct," Lucan says. "You've been compromised. Anissa, you are recalled to Viltrum immediately. Your evaluation authority is terminated." Anissa doesn't argue. just stands, wipes blood from her face, as the Grand Regent commands. Something passes between them, acknowledgement, regret, determination. Then she flies away, straight up, disappearing into the atmosphere. Lucan watches her go, then turns to Mark. You demonstrated loyalty to the Empire today. That's noted. But understand, Earth remains under observation. Another operative will be assigned. The next evaluation will not be as lenient as Anissa's. Mark stands in the wreckage, bleeding, ribs screaming, and waits until both Viltrumites are gone. Then he activates his private comm. Anissa, he recalled you but didn't execute you. That's a win. A temporary win. I can't return to Earth now. The moment I do, I'm confirming my defection. So where do you go? Chapter 13. The Exile. Anissa spends 3 days in Earth's orbit, hidden on the dark side of the moon, trying to figure out her next move. Mark flies up on day 4, brings supplies, food, water, medical supplies. She doesn't technically need them, but it's a gesture. They sit on the lunar surface, Earth hanging above them like a blue marble. Lucan filed his report, Anissa says. I intercepted the transmission before it fully encrypted. He recommended my reassignment to Coalition frontline duty. Thrag approved. So you're officially recalled. Officially, I'm to report to the flagship in 6 days for deployment. If I don't show, I'm declared rogue. The Empire hunts me. Actively. Mark looks at her. You could go. Report for duty. Pretend the Earth assignment was just temporary duty that ended. You'd be safe. I'd be back to conquering planets for an empire I no longer believe in. That's not safety. That's surrender. So you choose Earth. I choose the possibility of something different. But I can't stay here. The next Imperial operative will be watching for contact between us. If I'm found on Earth, it proves collusion. Your protectorate status gets revoked immediately. They sit in silence. The problem has no clean solution. Finally, Mark speaks. Alan, the Coalition liaison, he's been monitoring the Empire's movements. Maybe he can help. The Coalition hates Viltrumites. They've been at war with us for centuries. But they also hate Thrag. And you've got intelligence about Imperial operations, troop movements, strategic weaknesses. You're valuable. You're suggesting I defect to the Coalition. I'm suggesting you offer them information in exchange for asylum. It's not perfect, but it's something. And if they just execute me for being Viltrumite, then at least you'll die having made your own choice instead of following orders. Anissa laughs, sharp, bitter. That's your pitch. Die with dignity? Better than living without it. She doesn't argue. They arrange a meeting through back channels. Alan agrees, cautiously, to meet Anissa at a neutral location, a dead planet in Coalition space. Before she leaves, Anissa turns to Mark. Thank you for the chance, for treating me like someone who could change instead of someone who'd already been decided. You decided who you are. I just gave you the space to figure it out. In 2,000 years, no one ever offered me that. She grips his shoulder, the Viltrumite gesture of respect. If I survive the Coalition, I'll find a way to help Earth. That's a promise. Just survive. That's enough. She flies away. Mark watches until she's a speck disappearing into the black. Day 162. A new Imperial operative arrives. His name is Thula. Younger than Anissa, maybe 600 years old. He lands at GDA headquarters without ceremony, already scanning with Viltrumite tech. Mark Grayson. I'm your new evaluator. Anissa's reports have been flagged as unreliable. I'm here to conduct an unbiased assessment. Cecil is present for the meeting. What does an unbiased assessment entail? I review all military capabilities, all infrastructure, all population sentiment, no restricted areas, no classified data. If I determine you're concealing instability, I recommend immediate occupation. Mark exchanges glances with Cecil. This is worse than Anissa. At least she was willing to negotiate. Understood, Mark says. Where do you want to start? Casualties, arrests, interrogation records, everything. Over the next 3 weeks, Thula conducts the most invasive inspection Earth has ever experienced. He interviews hundreds of civilians, reviews years of GDA surveillance data, analyzes every superhuman conflict from the past decade, and he finds everything they hoped he wouldn't. On day 183, Thula summons Mark to GDA headquarters for his preliminary findings. Earth is unstable, Thula says without preamble. Civilian resistance is increasing, not decreasing. Your management approach has failed to generate genuine compliance. The population tolerates your authority but does not embrace it. They're human. Compliance takes time. The coalition war requires resources. Earth must be either a productive protectorate or a terminated experiment. Currently, you're neither. 30 Viltrumites, full pacification, human government dissolved. Mark's world tilts. 3 months. Use that time to prepare your population for integration. Make the transition smooth, or make it violent. Your choice. Mark stands in the empty conference room, feeling everything he built collapsing. Cecil finds him 20 minutes later. We need to evacuate key personnel. Get our best people off-world before the occupation arrives. Evacuate where? We don't have. I've been building contingencies. Secret bases on Mars, hidden stations in the asteroid belt. It's not much, but it's something. Cecil, we can't abandon 8 billion people. That's survival, Mark. That's surrender. Call it what you want, but in 3 months, Viltrumites arrive, and this time, there's no Anissa to negotiate with. Mark wants to argue. Can't, because Cecil is right. Unless something changes in the next 3 months, Earth falls. Chapter 14. The Coalition, Day 197. Mark receives an encrypted transmission. Mark, it's me, Anissa. What? How are you alive? Did the Coalition? I'm working with them, officially. It's complicated, but I have news. The Coalition is planning a major offensive against the Empire. They're going to hit Thrag's flagship directly. When? Maybe 7. The operation is massive. Every Coalition asset, multiple species, coordinated assault. If it succeeds, the Empire's command structure collapses. Mark processes this, and if it fails, then the Coalition loses and the Empire dominates the galaxy. But here's the important part. If the Empire is fighting for survival, Earth becomes a non-priority. Thrag can't afford to occupy a protectorate when his flagship is under assault. So you're saying the Coalition offensive could delay Earth's occupation? More than delay. If Thrag falls, the entire Imperial structure fragments. The surviving Viltrumites fight amongst themselves for control. Earth could gain years of breathing room. And you're telling me this because I made you a promise. I said I'd help Earth if I survived. This is me keeping that promise. Mark's mind races through scenarios. Can the Coalition win? Realistically? I don't know. Thrag is the most dangerous Viltrumite alive. He's survived 4,000 years of warfare. But the Coalition has numbers, technology, and now they have me, someone who knows Imperial tactics. I'm not asking you to fight. Earth can't afford to antagonize the Empire openly. Just survive. Hold on for 6 more weeks. Let the Coalition do the heavy lifting. And if the Coalition loses, then Earth gets occupied and I probably die in the Imperial counteroffensive. But at least we tried. Mark sits in the silence, weighing options. 6 weeks until the Coalition attack. 10 weeks until Earth's scheduled occupation. Everything depends on timing and luck. He calls an emergency meeting. The Guardians, Cecil, Eve, Robot. Shows them the message. This changes nothing, Cecil says immediately. We still need to evacuate key personnel. The Coalition might fail. We prepare for the worst. Or, Eve counters, we prepare to help the Coalition succeed. Give them intelligence, tactical data, anything that increases their odds. If the Empire finds out Earth is aiding their enemies, occupation becomes extermination. The Immortal speaks up, so we're damned either way. Help the Coalition and risk extermination. Don't help and definitely get occupied. At least helping gives us a chance. They debate for hours, no consensus. But a plan emerges. Cautious support, encrypted intelligence passed through back channels, nothing traceable to Earth directly. It's not much, but it's something. Day 229. The Coalition offensive begins. Mark watches from Earth's orbit, monitoring deep space telemetry. The Coalition forces are massive. Hundreds of ships, thousands of warriors from dozens of species, all converging on Thrag's flagship. The battle is apocalyptic. Ships the size of cities tear each other apart, energy weapons bright enough to blind satellites. Space itself seems to warp under the violence. And in the center of it all, Mark sees them, Viltrumites, moving through the Coalition fleet like sharks through schools of fish. They're outnumbered 500 to 1, but they're winning. Then Anissa appears on the tactical feed. She's leading a Coalition strike team, targeting the flagship's engines. Mark watches her coordinate the assault with brutal efficiency, everything she learned in 2,000 years of conquest. now turned against the Empire. The engines explode. The flagship loses propulsion. For a moment, Mark thinks they might actually win. Then, Thrag emerges. The Grand Regent moves through coalition forces like they're paper. He's not just fighting, he's teaching a lesson. Every kill is deliberate, demonstrative. This is what happens when you challenge the Empire. Mark watches Anissa's strike team get scattered, watches her barely escape Thrag's counterattack. The coalition offensive, which looked so promising, starts to crumble. After 6 hours, the coalition forces retreat. They didn't lose, they survived. But they didn't win either. Thrag's flagship is damaged but functional. The Empire stands. Day 235. Anissa contacts Mark again. We failed. Her voice is exhausted. Thrag is stronger than we estimated. The coalition lost 30% of our offensive capability. It'll be years before we can mount another attack. How many casualties? Maybe tens of thousands. I don't have final numbers yet. Anissa, you did what you could. I led them into a massacre. These people trusted me, trusted that my knowledge of Imperial tactics would give them an edge. I was wrong. You gave them a chance they wouldn't have had otherwise. A chance to die. How noble. Mark recognizes the tone. PSD, survivor's guilt, the crash after adrenaline fades. He's felt it himself after the Invincible War. Listen to me, Mark says firmly. You made a choice to fight for something better. That choice mattered. It still matters. The Empire is damaged, you did that. The coalition survived, you helped them survive. That's not failure, that's resistance. Then, the Empire is going to retaliate. Thrag will crack down on every protectorate, every contested world, Earth included. Then we'll deal with it. How? You have 3 weeks until occupation. The coalition can't help you now. I can't help you. You're alone. Mark looks down at Earth, the planet he spent 6 months trying to save, the people who are counting on him to find an answer he doesn't have. Yeah, he says quietly. I know. Chapter 15. The Choice, Day 243. 1 week until Earth's scheduled occupation. Mark hasn't slept in 3 days. He's been running scenarios, analyzing options, searching for any possible way to avoid what's coming. There isn't one. Eve finds him on the roof of their apartment building at 4 a.m. You need to rest. I need to find an answer. There isn't one, Mark. We both know that. He turns to face her. So what do I do? Let 30 Viltrumites arrive and turn Earth into a prison planet? Watch everything we built get dismantled? You do what you've been doing. You survive. You adapt. You find a way forward. Eve, they're going to dissolve human government, install imperial oversight, turn us into a conquered species. How do I adapt to that? She takes his hands. I don't know, but I know you. You've been fighting impossible odds since the Invincible War. You've kept us alive when we should have died a dozen times. You'll find a way. And if I don't, then we face what comes together. Mark pulls her into a hug, holds on like she's the only thing keeping him grounded. His comm buzzes. Cecil, Mark, you need to see this now. They fly to GDA headquarters. The situation room is packed. The Guardians, Robot, half the command staff. Everyone staring at a holographic display. It's a transmission Viltrumite encryption. But the source isn't Thrag's flagship. It's Anissa. Mark, if you're receiving this, the Coalition has done something incredibly stupid. We've revealed your intelligence sharing to the Empire. Deliberately. We sent Thrag proof that Earth has been supporting Coalition operations. Mark's blood runs cold. I'm sorry, Anissa continues. This wasn't my decision. Coalition Command voted to sacrifice Earth's protectorate status to justify continued operations against the Empire. They're using you as a distraction, those bastards, Cecil mutters. Thrag will accelerate Earth's occupation, Anissa says. He can't allow protectorates to support his enemies. You have maybe 3 days before the occupation force arrives. I've tried to slow the transmission, buy you time, but Viltrumite Imperial Seal. Thrag's voice, cold and absolute. Mark Grayson, you have betrayed the Empire's trust. Earth's protectorate status is revoked immediately. An occupation force departs within the hour. You will surrender authority to Imperial governance or be terminated as an enemy combatant. You have 48 hours to prepare your population. The transmission ends. Silence in the situation room. Then everyone talks at once. Evacuation plans, defense strategies, desperate last-stand scenarios. Cecil is already mobilizing GDA assets, preparing for urban warfare that will kill millions. Mark stands frozen, watching the chaos. This is it, the end game he's been dreading for 6 months. No more negotiations, no more delays, just violence and occupation and the death of everything they tried to build. Eve grabs his arm. Mark, what do we do? He looks at her, at the Guardians, at Cecil coordinating defense protocols, at the display still showing Earth spinning peacefully, unaware that in 48 hours everything changes, and he makes a choice. Everyone stop. The room goes quiet. We're not fighting, Mark says. Mark, if we don't mount a defense, Cecil starts, we're not fighting because we can't win. 30 Viltrumites arrive in 2 days. If we resist, they kill everyone. If we surrender, Earth survives. Occupied, but alive. You're talking about giving up, the immortal says. I'm talking about survival. That's what I've been doing for 6 months. Whatever it takes to keep Earth alive. This is what it takes. Unless someone has a way to beat 30 Viltrumites in direct combat, yeah, that's exactly what we do. No one speaks, because no one has an answer. Okay, Mark says quietly, then we prepare for occupation. We document everything. Human government structures, legal systems, cultural practices. We create a record of what Earth was before the Empire arrived. And we survive. However long it takes, we survive. And when the Empire falls, and it will fall eventually, we rebuild. That could be centuries, Monster Girl says. Then we make those centuries count. It's not heroic. It's not triumphant. It's just cold, pragmatic reality. But it's the only path forward. Chapter 16. The Occupation, Day 245. The occupation force arrives. 30 Viltrumites descend from orbit in perfect formation. They land in major cities across the globe. New York, Beijing, London, Tokyo, Mumbai, Sao Paulo. The message is clear. We are everywhere. Resistance is futile. Mark meets their commander, a Viltrumite named Conquest. Not the same Conquest who will arrive years later in the original timeline. This one is younger, colder, absolutely committed to Imperial doctrine. Mark Grayson, you are relieved of all authority. Earth is now under direct Imperial governance. Mark doesn't argue, just nods. I've prepared transition documents, government structures, key personnel, infrastructure maps, everything you need. Conquest seems surprised. You're cooperating? I'm choosing Earth's survival over my pride. The documents are comprehensive. Use them. Anissa's reports indicated you'd be difficult. She was wrong about many things. Anissa tried to save Earth and got branded a traitor for it. Now her name is used as a cautionary tale. The occupation happens fast. Human governments are dissolved. GDA authority is transferred to Imperial oversight. Superhuman teams are disbanded or integrated into Viltrumite control. Earth's defense grid is repurposed for Imperial use. The transformation takes 6 weeks. When it's done, Earth is unrecognizable, efficient, orderly, controlled. And Mark Grayson, who spent 6 months trying to prevent this, becomes the Empire's representative on Earth, not as a liaison, but as a governor, a human face on Imperial authority. It's the role he fought to avoid. And now it's the only way he can influence how Earth is treated. Chapter 17. The Long Game. 3 months after occupation, Mark sits in his new office, a repurposed GDA facility now serving as Imperial Administrative Headquarters. The walls are bare, efficient, Viltrumite aesthetic. Eve visits rarely. When she does, there's distance between them. Not anger, she understands why he made the choices he made. But understanding doesn't close the gap between who he was and who he's become. How many arrests today, she asks. 47. Resistance cells in 3 cities. All non-violent. I recommended labor reassignment instead of execution. How merciful, Eve. I'm not criticizing. I'm observing. You're doing what you can within the system. I get it. But don't pretend it's the same as what we used to fight for. She leaves before he can respond. Mark reviews the day's reports. Infrastructure development is ahead of schedule. Viltrumite efficiency works. Crime has dropped 90%. Imperial law enforcement is brutal but effective. Quality of life metrics are actually improving for most humans. But freedom is gone. Choice is gone. Earth survives as a subject population, not a free civilization. It's everything he fought to prevent, and he's become the instrument of its implementation. Late that night, Mark receives an encrypted transmission. Anissa. Mark, I know you can't respond. They're monitoring your communications, but I need you to know. the Coalition hasn't given up on Earth. We're planning something, long-term, years, maybe decades, but we're planning. Mark listens, can't reply, just listens. What the Coalition did, selling out Earth to distract the Empire, it was wrong. I voted against it. I lost. But I'm not accepting it. I'm working inside Coalition Command now. I have influence, and I'm using it to make sure Earth isn't forgotten. A pause. Then, I'm sorry for everything. For evaluating you like you were a problem to solve. For not defecting sooner. For thinking the Empire could ever be anything but what it is. I'm sorry. Mark sits in the dark, holding a communicator he can't use, working for an empire he despises, trying to protect a planet that's already fallen. This is what survival looks like. Chapter 18, The Resistance. 1 year after occupation, Earth has adapted. Humans are resilient. They've survived conquests before, occupations before. They adapt to new realities while holding on to what makes them human. Underground resistance networks form. Not violent. Mark made it clear that violence triggers severe imperial response. Instead, they preserve cultural records, historical documents, art, music, literature, everything the Empire considers inefficient or unnecessary. They hide it, pass it down, keep Earth's identity alive in the shadows. Mark knows about the resistance. Officially, he should report them. Unofficially, he ensures Imperial intelligence focuses elsewhere. It's a delicate game, one he plays every day. Eve becomes one of the resistance leaders. She doesn't tell Mark directly, but he knows. Sees the signs, the late-night meetings, the coded language. The way she looks at him now, not with hatred, but with sad understanding. They're on opposite sides of the same goal, keeping Earth alive. One night she breaks protocol, visits him at the office after hours. I need a favor, she says. I can't. Yes, you can. There's a shipment of cultural archives being moved to Imperial storage for evaluation. It's going to be destroyed. We both know it. I need you to delay the transfer. Give us time to copy the records. If I'm caught interfering with Imperial logistics, then you'll face consequences. I know. But these are irreplaceable records, Mark. Earth's history. Our identity. If they're destroyed, we lose part of what makes us human. Mark looks at her, the woman he loves, asking him to risk everything for symbols and stories. He thinks about what Anissa said months ago, about Earth having something Viltrum lost, the ability to find meaning in futility. 48 hours, Mark says. That's all I can give you. Thank you. She leaves. Mark sits alone, knowing he just committed a betrayable offense, knowing he'd do it again. Because if Earth's survival means losing everything that makes Earth worth surviving for, what's the point? Chapter 19, The Return 2 years after occupation. The Coalition War intensifies. Thrag is winning, but slowly. The Empire expands into new territories while the Coalition fractures under pressure. Earth remains stable, productive, a model protectorate that other conquered worlds are measured against. Mark has become an expert at navigating imperial politics. He knows which officials can be reasoned with, which require bribery, which are too ideological to approach. He saved thousands of human lives through careful manipulation of imperial bureaucracy. But he's lost himself in the process. Then Anissa returns. She arrives without warning, landing at imperial headquarters in the middle of the day. Mark is in a meeting with Conquest when his comm alerts him. Anissa is here, requesting to see you. Immediately. Mark excuses himself, finds her in the corridor looking older somehow. Tired, there are new scars. Anissa, what are you doing here? If the Empire finds out you're on Earth, I'm not staying. I'm delivering a message. From the Coalition. She hands him a data chip. This contains information about an Imperial operation. They're planning to relocate Earth's population, send you to labor colonies on resource worlds, turn Earth into a Viltrumite military base. Mark's blood runs cold. When? 6 months. Maybe 8. The Empire is running out of resources. They need Earth's infrastructure, but not its people. Badly. In a year, maybe 2, the Coalition collapses. The Empire dominates the galaxy. Earth becomes whatever Thrag wants it to be. 2 years of careful management, of political maneuvering, of trying to keep Earth alive. And now it's all ending anyway. So that's it? We just wait to be relocated? Anissa steps closer, or you fight. One last time, massive coordinated resistance, make Earth too costly to control, force the Empire to choose between occupation and extermination. They might choose extermination, but at least it's a choice. That's not a plan, that's suicide. It's refusing to go quietly. It's showing the Empire that some species would rather die free than live as subjects. Anissa's voice is intense. I've spent 2 years with the Coalition watching species give up, accept conquest, fade away. You don't have to do that. And you think humanity would rather die fighting? And I think you could inspire them to do the same. Mark looks at this woman who evaluated Earth 2 years ago, who almost recommended its conquest, who's now asking him to lead a resistance that will probably fail. Why? Mark asks. Why come here, risk exposure, deliver this message? You could have just sent the data remotely. Anissa is quiet. Then, because I owe you, because you gave me a chance when I didn't deserve one, because you showed me that strength can serve creation instead of destruction, and because if Earth falls, the last example of that philosophy dies with it. So, this is about philosophy. This is about proving something, to the Empire, to the Coalition, to myself, that there's another way. Mark takes the data chip. I'll think about it. Don't think too long. 6 months passes quickly. She flies away. Mark stands in the corridor holding information that could start a war Earth can't win. Chapter 20. The Endgame. 5 months, 3 weeks after Anissa's visit. Mark makes his decision. He calls a secret meeting. Eve, Cecil, the Guardians, the resistance leaders, everyone who's been fighting the occupation in quiet ways. In 1 week, the Empire begins relocating Earth's population. We'll be scattered across the galaxy, used for labor, experimentation. Whatever the Empire decides, Earth becomes an empty military base. Silence. Then, Eve, what are our options? Fight or accept. If we fight, we probably lose, but we force the Empire to work for their victory. If we accept, we survive as slaves. Those aren't options, the Immortal says. That's just choosing how we die. Yeah, Mark agrees. It is. Cecil lights a cigar. So, what's the plan? Coordinated strikes against Imperial infrastructure. We hit them everywhere at once. Make it so chaotic they can't respond effectively. Give people time to evacuate, hide, resist. And then we see what happens. Maybe the Empire decides we're too much trouble. Maybe they exterminate us. Maybe the Coalition uses our resistance as cover for their own operations. We don't know, but we stop playing by their rules. They spend 3 days planning, 7 days until relocation begins. Not enough time, never enough time. But it's what they have. On day 6, Mark broadcasts a message, not encrypted, not hidden, sent on every frequency, every channel, every device on Earth. This is Mark Grayson. In 24 hours, the Viltrumite Empire begins relocating Earth's population. We've been given a choice: accept relocation peacefully or resist and face consequences. I'm choosing resistance, not because I think we can win, but because some things are worth dying for. Freedom is one of them. If you want to fight, you know where to find me. If you want to survive, I understand. No judgment. But I'm done being the Empire's governor. I'm going back to being invincible. The transmission ends. Across Earth, people make their choices. Some hide, some evacuate to remote regions, some prepare to fight. And in Imperial headquarters, Conquest receives Mark's message. Treason, Conquest says quietly. After 2 years of cooperation, why now? He doesn't understand, can't understand. To Viltrumites, cooperation is strength. Resistance is weakness. They don't comprehend dying for principles. Conquest mobilizes the occupation force. 30 Viltrumites ready to crush the rebellion before it starts. But Mark has spent 2 years studying Imperial tactics, learning their patterns, understanding their weaknesses. He knows he can't win, but he can make them bleed. Epilogue. The legacy, the Earth resistance, lasts 6 weeks. It's brutal. Casualties in the millions, cities destroyed, infrastructure ruined. Everything Mark spent 2 years building, demolished in weeks of warfare. But Earth doesn't go quietly. Humans fight with everything they have: guerrilla tactics, sabotage, desperation weaponized. The Guardians lead strike teams. Eve uses her powers to devastating effect. Cecil coordinates from hidden bunkers. And Mark fights like someone who has nothing left to lose. He takes down 4 Viltrumites personally, injures a dozen more, becomes the symbol of resistance across occupied worlds. The Empire wins. They always were going to win, but it costs them. 33% casualty rate among occupation forces, 6 weeks of operations that should have taken 2 days, a planet that refused to be taken quietly. Other occupied worlds notice, start their own resistances, small at first, growing. The Empire's grip begins to slip. 3 years after Earth's resistance, Mark is still alive, barely. He's been living in hiding, moving between safe houses, always one step ahead of Imperial hunters. He receives a transmission, encrypted Coalition frequency. Mark, it's Anissa. The Coalition is mounting a final offensive. We're throwing everything at Thrag's command. If we fail, we're finished. If we succeed, the Empire shatters. What do you need from me? You've done enough. Earth's resistance bought us time, gave us hope, proved that occupied worlds could fight back. That matters more than you know. Did we make a difference? You made Earth legendary. That's something. The transmission continues. Mark, I want you to know. Meeting you changed me, not just my tactics or my philosophy. Me, the person I am. For 2,000 years, I was what the Empire made me. You showed me I could be something else. Thank you for that, Anissa. I'm going to die in this offensive. I know that, but I'm dying fighting for something I believe in. That's better than I expected to get. Mark stands in his safe house, listening to silence, thinking about the woman who evaluated Earth 3 years ago, who learned to care, who chose resistance over submission. He hopes she takes some of them down with her. 5 years after Earth's resistance, the Coalition offensive succeeds, barely, at catastrophic cost. Thrag is killed, the Empire fragments, Viltrumites fight amongst themselves, occupied worlds rebel. The galaxy descends into chaos. But chaos means opportunity. Mark emerges from hiding, finds Eve still leading resistance cells, Cecil still coordinating from his bunkers, the Guardians scattered but alive. What now? Eve asks. Now we rebuild. Not Earth as it was. Something that learned from everything that happened. We deal with each one individually. Mark looks at the ruins of what used to be his planet. But we're free now. Really free. That's worth something. Eve takes his hand. Yeah, it is. They start rebuilding, slowly, carefully, learning from mistakes. And somewhere in deep space, on a Coalition vessel, there's a memorial, names of the fallen. Near the top, carved in angular Viltrumite script. Anissa, who learned to care. Mark sees it years later, visiting Coalition space. Stands before the memorial for a long time. You were right, he says to the stone. It was worth it. Thank you for the chance. Earth survives, not unchanged, not unscathed, but alive. And Mark Grayson, who spent years trying to bridge 2 worlds, finally understands what that means. The end.